Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Atheist Experience. That's Televangelist from John R. Butler. Evidently, we have purchased his CD, so because we keep using great songs from him. So, big thanks to John for those. We're live. Today is Sunday, November 19th, 2006. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty, and joining me this week, Jeff D.
Hi, folks. Hi, Matt.
How you doing?
Good. You?
Tired.
Tired.
But good. I'm generally
I'm here
good.
to help.
A little tired. This is a live call-in public access television program. We'll have the number up for you shortly. We got to get some announcements out of the way first. Feel free to call in once the number's up, discuss any topic you want or whatever we happen to be talking about at the time. This is an opportunity for the atheists in our community to interact with the public, answer questions, discuss issues, provide our opinions on various subjects, talk about issues, and for the public to call in and ask questions or debate or tell us why we're wrong or argue or whatever it is they want to do. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at 11:30 at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road, except for beginning in January, the first Sunday of the month, when the Sunday morning meeting will happen at the Austin History Center at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe for our lecture series. There won't be a lecture in December. We'll start again first Sunday in January. Stay tuned for more information about who's going to be providing our lecture. There should also be more information available online at our website, www.atheist-community.org. This show is available live to people over cable and also as a podcast downloadable from our website. And because of that, we've received email and correspondence from around the world. Anyone interested in contacting the show, if you can't get through on the telephone today or if you don't want to, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That email address goes to everybody involved in the show, myself, all the co-hosts, the people behind the scenes, and you can provide us anything you want, any questions, feedback, comments, criticisms, corrections, things we might have overlooked or missed. Feel free to mail those in. Also, we have on our website a frequently asked questions section. And if somebody calls in to ask a question that's already been answered previously on the show, and it's a question that's covered by the FAQ, then we'll probably direct you there rather than repeating ourselves over and over again. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio program called The Nonprofits. That's PROPHETS. We were live yesterday and did a longer than normal show.
We did. We did about half an hour extra.
Yeah, almost a full half hour extra. We don't take live calls for that show, but we do run an IRC chat in conjunction with the show. I have a lot of people in there talking, offering us feedback, and when we're actually paying attention and reading it, we can respond to it. There's a slight delay, so it gets confusing, and if I get distracted because I have to do much more at the show, I might miss something on occasion. But it's a lot of fun. We'll be live again December 2nd, 2006, and let's see, so we got the lecture. I guess in addition to those programs, the ACA also sponsors a number of social events throughout the week, including happy hour on Thursdays. We've been going to Nympha's on Anderson near 183 and I-35. That begins at 7:30. Anybody who wants to can come down and have some drinks, meet some of the folks in the ACA, talk, have a dinner, whatever. And after this program, everybody involved in the show has been getting together to go to Threadgills on Riverside. The show's over at 6 o'clock. We normally get down there around 6:30. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to any of our events. You don't have to be a member in order to come down and meet us or join us at a lecture or a dinner or whatever. But if you're planning on coming down to, preach or proselytize, save your breath. We'll have the number for you here in like a minute, and you can call in and talk to us that way instead of coming down to ruin a dinner.
Cool.
I think that's all the announcements.
I got a couple.
Cool.
You mind?
Yes, and there's stuff going on.
The ACA Winter Solstice Party is coming up. This is for members of the ACA out there watching the show. A reminder, on December 16, the party will be from 6 p.m. to midnight. Information is on the website. I think you have to log in as a member to access the information because we don't want any party crashers. The website, if you're an ACA member and don't already know this, I don't know why, but it's www.atheist-community.org. It's December 16. Also, the Secular Coalition for America is offering a $1,000 reward to anyone who can identify the highest ranking elected non-believer currently serving in the U.S. government. Entries must be received by December 31st, Entries must name the elected official, identify their office, and include the contestant's name, address, and contact information. A letter will be requested from the public official for them to acknowledge that they are a non-believer. So just saying so don't make it so. The rules and entry form for the Find an Atheist, Humanist, Freethinker Elected Official contest can be found at www.secular.org/contest. The winner will be announced in January. We had somebody email our show saying that they had submitted the name of Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont, I think it is.
I think so.
Saying that they found a website that listed a reference from some person who claimed to have read in a magazine somewhere that Bernie Sanders is an atheist. I'm not convinced. So, that's all the announcements that I've got. News?
Yeah, sure. We've already got some callers lined up, but we're waiting for information from the studio.
I'm not wearing a
You're
mic.
not wearing a mic.
Did anybody hear anything I said?
This is what happens when I get here late.
This is definitely live and it's definitely public access. We prove it every week.
That's always your excuse.
So why don't you do those again, just in case anybody...
Oh, good grief. Control room, can you tell me if anybody actually heard me? Are we okay to go?
They probably heard you.
I'm talking now. We're good to go. All right,
Cool.
Let's move on to, Joel, what do you want to do, caller or news?
Well, we're not quite ready for calls.
Okay,
So
news.
let's go do news.
This may have been mentioned previously on the TV show, because it's not really recent news. Like, it's a little over a week old, I think. But I wanted to do the entire story here. Jesus Camp, which is featured in the documentary of the same name, about the summer camp where children of Christian fundamentalists are whipped into a little frenzy at this kids' camp and taught how to preach and taught how to speak in tongues and do all their kinds of crazy things. That Jesus Camp is closing down, apparently because of negative reaction sparked by the film. The documentary, which hit select U.S. theaters during the summer, portrays Becky Fisher, 55, the pastor who runs the camp, as the drill instructor of a group of young evangelical children steeling themselves for spiritual and political warfare. Led by Fisher, the children pray in tongues, as is common in charismatic strains of Pentecostalism, tearfully beg God to end abortion, and bless President Bush at a week-long camp in Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Now, apparently, there was vandalism at the campsite, and the owners of the campsite, it's a Baptist, Assemblies of God owns the campground, and they have asked the Jesus Camp not to use their facilities for the next few years because of the vandalism. Yeah. And we don't condone vandalism against anybody's private property. We think religion is pretty bad, not bad enough that you should damage their stuff. That doesn't make any sense. So that's very unfortunate. But I get the impression it's harder to judge the intangible impact of the film itself. But I would think there's probably more to this than just the vandalism in any case. So that's good news, because that was a terrible, terrible thing. We went and saw that documentary, and it was terrible what they were doing to those kids.
Yeah, it was like watching 90 minutes of child abuse. Is the impression that I had when we left.
Not physical child abuse, but mental, intellectual child abuse. So we're glad that's gone. And Ted Haggard was in that movie. Everybody remembers Ted Haggard, right? He's been in the news lately for something. I forget what.
In his most ironic moments. I'm actually looking forward to Jesus Camp coming out on DVD so that I can have it around. It wasn't. The thing is, a lot of people were outraged, and it was outrageous, but it wasn't necessarily abnormal. This wasn't necessarily the most extreme camp type case. It wasn't the most extreme indoctrination you could imagine, and not even the most extreme among fundamentalist beliefs. I mean, I doubt they'd be willing to associate with like Fred Phelps, for example. So things could be worse, and yet it was obvious watching this that you've got these poor kids who are desperate for attention and desperate for approval from any parent or authority figure, and going along with this kind of, they call it kids on fire. I mean, they're basically building up. I don't want to.
Kids on fire at Devil's Lake.
Yeah.
And
Kids on
I don't know
fire
how
for
that makes
Jesus.
sense to the people running the camp, but
But it was good. I was glad to hear that they were going to close it down. I would rather that it had been, because of just negative feedback and not due to vandalism. Because,
yeah, the vandalism way not good, not appropriate.
All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll start taking some calls here. We've got, is it John?
Yes, sir. How are y'all today?
Good. How you
Hi,
doing?
John. How are you?
I'm blessed. I called to ask a very simple question. Do y'all believe in Thanksgiving? Do y'all practice that?
Those are two different questions.
Well,
We're aware there's a Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah,
and
do y'all celebrate Thanksgiving?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, do you know that's originally a Christian holiday, and it still is?
No.
Yes, it is. If
Just
you look
because-
into
just
history
because-
a little bit,
hang
you'll
on, just
find
because-
out that
I put you on hold. I didn't hang up. Just because somebody is thankful to God doesn't have any effect on what they're thankful for. And it's perfectly legitimate for people to be thankful for things, as a recent article by Daniel Dennett talks about thank goodness and its importance. Just because the people were mostly Christian or prayed to a Christian God doesn't make this a religious holiday.
Thanksgiving, as I do every day, not every day.
Hello?
I will pray for y'all. May
Are
God
you-
be with you.
Hey, caller. And
He's going to
brave
pray.
also. I
He's going to
appreciate
pray
that in
for
a
us.
caller.
I tell you what, you pray for us and we'll think for you.
Never mind the fact that, any number of Christian holidays are dates that were taken over by Christianity from previous non-Christian religions. Does that bother you?
Do you think Jesus was
We're-
born on December 25th?
We're happy to celebrate a non-religious Thanksgiving because we don't believe in the religion. Well, sure, you're right. It was Christians. Well, it was Christians and Indians, I believe, the story goes, at the first Thanksgiving. Nobody ever complains that it was originally an Indian holiday or that we ought to be given thanks to those Indian gods. But that's sure, we're going ahead and we're taking over your holiday for our own purposes, for us, for completely secular reasons.
See, if you want to.
Sorry that bothers you.
It's a shame you hung up. You had to go ahead and do your, I don't want to have an actual discussion. I just want to preach and I'll pray for you. And then click. It's one of the most cowardly things I can imagine. But, if it makes you feel comfortable, it's fine. If you really want to complain about atheists celebrating a holiday that you think's Christian, call back as we get closer to Christmas, because some of us do things equivalent to celebrating during the Christmas season. I happen to think it's a great idea for a holiday. The idea that you're going to show your appreciation for people around you by getting them a gift, by spending time with them, by, let's take some time off work and enjoy each other and appreciate each other.
That's Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I said Christmas.
Okay.
That's
I
I was
lost
trying
track.
to call back around Christmas.
You're way ahead of me.
I happen to think that Thanksgiving is also a good idea for a holiday, in that we all have things to be thankful for. And one of the things that we should be thankful for is that we're not still living in the dark ages. And the sooner some of you people realize that and stop saying, oh, I'll pray for you, and hang up and actually have a real discussion, the better off we'll all be.
Wow. What a great call already. Let's move right ahead.
Let's get this party started. Arthur, how you doing?
Listen, man, I got a bone to pick with y'all.
Yeah?
With
Have
both
you
of
ever
us or
seen
all?
a monkey up close?
Have we ever seen a monkey up close? At
Like
the-
an orangutan. You telling me, a highly evolved being, you telling that monkey crawled out of some kind of lake of fire, and all of a sudden now I'm walking around here in Texas? You telling me?
hang on.
No, sir.
First
We're
of
not.
all, I'm not convinced you are a highly
man,
evolved
I'm talking
being.
here.
No, you're on hold here. I'm
Wait,
not
wait.
convinced you are a
Let
highly
him
evolved
speak.
being.
I think he's making an excellent display for his
An
point of view.
orangutan crawling out of fire. I don't know. First of all, we're not here talking necessarily about evolutionary theory. We can. You can get good information at talkorigins.org. But exactly what was it you're talking about?
I'm telling you, saying that the good Lord JC did everything to do with that. I am not a monkey. I'm not scratching my balls all day, kicking my ass, swatting at flies. I am a human being by the grace of God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, only child of Mary, Joseph.
The only child of Mary and Joseph. Boy, I'm
Mary,
sure
Joseph.
everybody who actually, you know.
I feel bad for you when the devil's raping you in the ass when you're.
I'm
Goodbye.
afraid we have to cut him off when he starts cussing.
I Jesus
I have
loves you.
I have a pretty low opinion of a lot of religious people, and even I think that guy was probably a fake.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Unfortunately, if he wasn't a fake, I mean, I don't expect everybody to be a theologist or even familiar with all the little nuances of their belief. But if you're somebody who's going to claim to be a Christian, you should probably know that it's not wise to run around saying that Jesus was the son of Mary and Joseph, because you've eliminated God as the father of Jesus right off the bat. But hey, you know, it's your religion, and if you enjoy that, good for you. We've got, is it Adolph?
Yeah, what's the difference between atheist and agnostic?
Ooh. May I?
Go for it.
Okay.
Ooh, I'm going to put you on hold because we're getting feedback, but I didn't hang up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, these terms have been used in a number of different ways throughout history. And so if you check dictionaries, you can find different definitions that don't always agree with each other. The best way to think about the difference that I've ever seen was in a book called, and I can't remember the name of the book. I'm so helpful today. Let me just go on and explain the thing. The atheism, the letter prefix A means not or without, and theism is belief in a god or gods. So atheism is about the question of belief, and since it's atheism, it's not belief in a god or gods or without belief in any gods, okay? Atheism is about belief. Agnosticism, the word Gnostic, the Gnosticism is about knowledge. And so the word atheism is without knowledge of a god. Pardon me?
Agnosticism.
Agnosticism means without knowledge of and it's generally applied to religion, so we assume that we're talking about gods again. So if you're an atheist if you don't believe. You're an agnostic if you don't know. Those are not mutually exclusive things. You can be both. Me, personally, just to give you an example, I am an atheist about every god I've ever heard of, and in some cases, I will say I'm an agnostic about those gods. I've heard about them, and looking at the claims and the evidence, I don't know whether they exist or not, but it seems pretty unlikely, and I don't believe. An agnostic and an atheist. There are other gods, like depending on how they're defined, you can logically disprove them. And so I'm a Gnostic atheist. I claim to know that certain gods don't exist, and therefore I don't believe in them. So it all depends on what god you're talking about. Is that helpful?
I got one more question.
Okay.
Sure.
If there is a God by some remote chance, where does that leave you?
In the same place that it leaves everybody else who doesn't believe in that particular God.
Okay.
I mean, like if the Christian God's true, then I guess all the Buddhists and Hindus and Jews and Raelians
So
are
that's where the
screwed.
faith
What
just
if-
comes in.
But if
Well,
there's
what-
some tribe in Africa that's right, then all the rest of them are screwed too.
Right. What if there is a god, and the god that there really is Odin from the Norse mythology, right? And you die and you go to Valhalla, and they don't let you into the big hall of heroes because you weren't a warrior in life and didn't dispose of yourself well and die well in battle, and so you don't get to participate in the great battle of Ragnarok at the end of time.
Yeah.
What if? Who knows?
What if in fact there's a God, but the conditions for there's no afterlife, or if there is a God and there is an afterlife, your belief in that God doesn't have any bearing on where you go or what you do. You could come up with any number of hypothetical situations. The only rational perspective, as far as I can tell, is to only believe in those things for which you have good evidentiary basis for belief. And in the case of God and afterlife and supernatural things, the evidence just isn't there. And it's not just that there's a lack of evidence, there's good circumstantial anecdotal evidence that it's not only not worth believing in, but that these ideas are fundamentally wrong. When you have religions that teach faith as a virtue, that you should disregard good evidence, science, reason, and believe in something just because, that's harmful. You have no way of knowing whether what you're believing in is true or not, and I'd much rather know that my beliefs are as true as possible.
But y'all seem like really good, beautiful, honest people, and y'all gotta have some kind of hope that, there's something that we all have in common. And
Well, there is something we all have in common. We're all human beings. That's a good start.
all right, well, y'all answered my question.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks for your call. That
Thanks for
was a
calling.
decent question. However, well, you can go and hang up on him, but I want to add that I'm sad to say that the only reason to come at an atheist with a question, with that particular question, right? Oh, what do you think's going to happen to you if you're wrong? Is if you ask that question and you're not in a position to prove to us that we're wrong, if you can't show by evidence that your God exists and we really ought to believe, then the only reason to ask that question is to try to scare us into signing up. And that's appalling. Just stop and think about it. If that's the best you can do to get people to join your religion, is to try to terrify us with a fear of some kind of horrible afterlife into joining up with your religion, then you really ought to step back and take a good long think about what you believe and why.
It reminds me, we were having a discussion about all of the various things that are wrong with religion, or evil things that have been done in the name of religion or due to religion. And somebody called in to say that, well, in this case we were talking about Christianity, and they called in to say, well, Christianity isn't all bad. And I'm like, if your best selling point is that it's not all bad, you should probably look around for some other options.
Yeah.
Is it John?
Yes, sir.
How you
Hi,
doing?
John.
Yeah, I didn't hang up. I didn't want to argue was the whole deal.
Okay.
And,
So you just wanted to...
I just, do you believe in Pharaoh?
In what?
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh? You mean like
Yeah.
the kings of ancient Egypt?
Yes.
Sure. There was an ancient Egypt, and it had
Okay.
kings, and they were called
There
pharaohs.
was no Moses at that time that you know of.
I'm sorry?
There was no Moses, right?
I don't know whether there was a Moses or not.
Well, if you believe in Pharaoh, in other words,
All
you
right, do you
believe
think
in
there was...
the
Hang
evil
on.
side of
Hang
all
on a
things.
second. Hang on a second. Do you think there was just one Pharaoh?
No, there was a younger Pharaoh that took over when he was, 12, 13 years old?
Dude, do you know how long the kingdom of Egypt existed?
To be honest with you, I think 2,000 years.
Okay, so clearly there were a lot of pharaohs. That's all we're trying to establish.
Pharaoh
Go ahead.
just
Well,
means
back,
king.
okay,
Unless you think the one pharaoh lasted
Can I
like,
ask you another
1,000 years.
question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, if there was a Moses, it's just like if you believe in Pharaoh, that's all in the same history. If you read, that all comes together.
Well, no, it's not.
If you believe in
that's not
Pharaoh-
quite right. That's not quite right. Hang on.
Yes, it is, sir.
Now,
Do you believe in
may
New
I-
York?
Hey,
Do you
let me-
believe in New York?
Do you know where the original meaning of atheist comes from?
Yes, it was the title used for Christians by the Romans.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And what did it mean, though?
It meant without belief in a particular set of gods.
No.
Yes.
It did not. And I can prove it. It meant an idiot.
No.
And you
wanna
can
bet?
prove that how?
You want to bet?
I mean, we know the roots of the words that go into forming the word atheist, right?
I've got You don't think I can prove it to you, right?
Because we know you're wrong. There's this.
You do.
Hang on.
But you believe.
Hang on.
You believe in that.
I'm going to put you on hold. Don't hang up. What we're saying here is that there's something called etymology, which is the study of the root and meanings of words, the histories of words. Atheism is atheism. Theism is a belief in the existence of a god or worship of a god, etc. Atheism means without that. You're making a claim. Oh, you did hang up. See, you don't know anything, and anytime that what a pointless. Why did you bother calling back?
So he could try to say some stuff that didn't make sense and make us hang up on him.
If you believe Pharaoh
again.
existed, then you must
And make
believe
us
Moses
put him on hold
existed.
again.
Well, you know what? Even if I did find that your absolutely ridiculous notion that believing that a Pharaoh existed was proof that Moses existed, that's still not proof that anything Moses wrote was remotely frickin' true.
Or that Moses wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to say, and he wouldn't let me, is that in the case of the pharaohs, because they were kings of Egypt, and I'll admit this is a little unfair to Moses, right? Because the pharaohs were the kings of Egypt and had all this wealth and power, they carved big freaking gigantic statues of them all over Egypt and wrote gigantic texts in stone, in hieroglyphics, about those pharaohs, okay? That's way more evidence for the existence of the pharaohs than there is for Moses, for whom, frankly, the only evidence is that it says that he existed in the Bible. There is no record of Moses in any ancient Egyptian sources at all, period, or of the events depicted in the supposed life of Moses. You know, if the Pharaoh and his entire army drove into the parted Red Sea and all got drowned, you'd think the ancient Egyptians, who were very careful bookkeepers, would have made a record of it somewhere. Yeah, they had a practice when you got a new king and he didn't like the old king of going around defacing all records of the old king. That's not the same thing. Not the same thing at all. All right.
Got Geoffrey, how you doing?
Yes, how you doing?
Good.
Yes, I got a question. Do y'all believe that man is missing one rib?
No.
No.
Do you?
Yes.
You better go count them. Pick up an anatomy book, run your fingers down your ribs and count them, and you'll find that it's a bunch of crap. Even the creationist websites will point out to Christians and creationists, please stop using this argument that anybody can refute by standing a man and a woman next to each other and physically counting the ribs. You have the same number of ribs. There isn't one missing, and we don't have an extra, and they don't have an extra, and we're not missing one. It's basic anatomy.
Okay, and then you were saying that people that was saying that Jesus' mother and father, Mary and Joseph, was calling them the father, and you're leaving God out. Why did the angels cast down and tell Joseph to stay into the relationship because that was God's son? Wasn't Joseph going to leave Mary because he knew he never had sex with her?
I think you've misunderstood what I was saying, and given the fact that you not only believe that we have an extra rib or are missing a rib, but believe that angels came down to talk to somebody, I don't know that we're ever going to find common ground, because recognizing your voice, you've called before asking why we're not electrocuted.
No, it's my first time calling.
Sorry?
This is my first time calling.
Oh.
It is. It's my first time seeing y'all. This is the reason
Under
why
this
I'm
name,
calling.
at least.
Okay.
Anyway, just to let the guy talk, dude. We got a whole show.
Go for it.
Somebody on a previous line, we were told
I'll
on our
explain.
screen here that from the control room that caller wanted to know what the point of the show was. One of the big points of us having this show is to fill an hour and a half. So,
Well,
let's
to make a correction to what we were talking about, when I was talking about the individual who said that Mary and Joseph were Jesus' parents, there is a problem within Christian theology that if you claim that Mary and Joseph are the parents, then you're removing God as the father of Jesus, which is a required element of Christian theology. You're eliminating the virgin birth. That wasn't, and it didn't have anything at all to do with whether or not Joseph stayed and acted as a parent after the conception.
Anything else, caller?
I misunderstood that. Say that again. I really did.
Okay. Generally, a Christian is not going to refer to Mary and Joseph as Jesus' parents,
Okay.
because that is an implicit denial of the virgin birth. That was my whole point.
Oh, I'm not denying the virgin birth. I'm not denying that at all.
And I didn't say you were.
I'm questioning why did the angels come down to keep Joseph into the
What
relationship?
angels?
Huh?
What angels? The angels in the story?
Well-
In what spirit are you asking this question? We'd be happy to, talk about the story and try to figure out why the writer would have put that in. But if you
Well,
want us to, if you want
how
to
come-
shoehorn in the assumption that therefore there are angels just because the book talks about them, then we're going to ask you to prove that there's angels, and we're off in that direction. So where do you want to go with this?
So you mean to tell me you believe in God, but you don't believe in angels?
We
We don't believe in either
God.
of those. We don't believe in God.
Well,
We're
then why are you
atheists. It's an
saying- why are you
atheist
talking
show,
about the
sir.
virgin birth, then, if you don't believe in God?
I didn't say I believed that the virgin birth was true. I said from the standpoint of Christian theology, you're not going to find generally Christians making the claim that Mary and Joseph were Jesus' parents, because that would deny the virgin birth. I don't think there was a virgin birth. In fact, I think it's scientifically impossible, which means it's an appeal to supernatural claims. And since I don't believe in anything supernatural, because there's absolutely no evidence in the entire history of humankind of anything supernatural occurring, there's no reason for me to believe that claim either.
So you believe in Pharaoh?
Pharaoh is a title that
Pharaoh
means
didn't believe nothing Moses said. He denied. He
Do
canceled
we need to ask
everything
him
out
whether
what
he believes
Moses
more than one
did
Pharaoh?
with science. That's exactly what you're doing.
I'm not
And?
sure. Hang on,
So
because
what?
now this is important. You're making a claim about Pharaoh when it's obvious that you don't know anything about the story of Pharaoh. Because if you've read it, according to the Bible, and I don't believe any of this to be true, but since we're going to argue about what you believe, according to the Bible, the Pharaoh wanted to let Moses and his people go, but God specifically hardened his heart, violated his free will, and prevented him from doing it. Basically, God was having a pissing contest with himself to show off. That's the story. So I don't know where you get this idea that Pharaoh didn't believe Moses and argued from science. Pharaoh had his own magicians who he had to duplicate some of the feats that Moses was doing. We're not talking about a man of science. We're not talking about somebody who disagreed with Moses. He was fearful. He was ready to give up and ready to concede that Moses' God was the true one. But God kept preventing him from doing it. Don't come telling me about Bible stories if you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
So you believe in the Big Bang Theory, huh?
I believe that the Big Bang Theory is the most reliable scientific explanation for origins that we have right now.
You're just a straight idiot.
Well, thanks.
See? Wasn't that worth waiting for?
You believe that Pharaoh was a man of
boy.
science, and I'm the idiot.
You're right. That was an important place to go. I forgot about the whole God hardens Pharaoh's heart thing, which, means that caller was full of it.
Well, I don't want to say he's full of it because I'm a straight idiot.
Oh, he was full of that.
Who knows?
Woo! We're having a fun time now. Who's next?
I don't believe your fairy tales if that makes me
Hi.
an idiot. Hi, David.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Hey.
I'm a first-time caller and first-time viewer. Actually, my question is, rather than attacking Christianity and what so many people do believe, what do you base our existence on and from whence we came?
Our existence on? Okay.
Where do we come from?
Okay. I think
Your belief.
I hate to talk for myself and somebody else at the same time, but only one of us can be flapping our gums at once. I think it's safe to say Matt and I both think that science is the most effective way that human beings have of finding out what's true, and the current scientific consensus explanation for how human beings came about is evolution.
Okay.
I would point out quickly that my atheism is not dependent upon evolution, upon abiogenesis, upon the Big Bang, and it's not dependent upon any particular explanation. Even if all of those turned out to be completely wrong, that still doesn't justify any claims about a God. My atheism is the direct result of a lack of evidence to support claims about various God hypotheses, and that's it. There's more to it. But
it is
to imply that I think that Christianity and other religions imply that they have answers that aren't answers at all. They're big non-answers. That like, oh, God created us. Well, that doesn't really answer anything or provide you with any new information. And it certainly saying it doesn't make it more viable of an explanation, even though I don't think it's an explanation at all, than a scientific explanation like evolution.
Yeah, but and I want to step in and say, caller, it's a completely fair question on your part, right? Most people have the assumption that you need, that you either need or that most people just get their ideas about the origin of humanity, the idea about purpose of life, their ideas about ethics and morality and all that kind of stuff from a religion, and we're people that don't have one. It's completely fair and reasonable to ask us what our answers to those things are, right? And that's what we're going about doing. But Matt's just pointing out, all that atheism is the lack of theism, right? The lack of belief in any gods. Where you go from that is kind of open-ended. There's these people out there called Raelians who are atheists who believe that humans were planted on the earth by space aliens. Now we're not Raelians, and speaking personally, I think they're full of it.
Because atheism has...
But that's all. I mean, the only thing we share in common with them is we happen to not believe in any gods. Okay?
I have no problem discussing evolution in a limited sense, but I'm not a scientist. And the bigger point that needs to be made over and over and over again is that atheism has no dogma, no tenets, no required beliefs. It has no dependency upon evolution, and it doesn't pretend to offer answers. Atheism isn't some robust philosophy that says, "Ooh, here's your answer to where we came from. It's evolution." That's not the case. It is the case that most reasonable, educated people who would identify themselves as atheists probably accept the theory of evolution because, well, it's a fact. Now, human descent, I realize that you can fine-tune arguments about that, but I mean, evolution itself is a fact.
What would be the definition of faith, and where did that word come from?
Now we're talking
and
about...
does it have any application in your...
if we're talking about religious faith, right? The problem with the word faith is, if you look in a dictionary, it can cover anything from an assumption that some really reliable thing is going to go your way, right? Like the faith that when you sit in a chair, it's going to hold you up. Because 999 times out of 1,000, it does. Probably more than that. I'm just throwing some numbers out there. But at the other end of the scale, in the religious sense, faith can be belief in some proposition in spite of the total lack of evidence that that proposition is true, or even in the direct face of disconfirming evidence, right? So there's a really wide range of ways that that's used. And when we get into debates with believers on our show or about faith, they generally play this little word game where they try to establish that this really weak kind of faith is reasonable. Therefore, their incredibly extreme kind of faith is reasonable.
Yeah, I tend to avoid it by going... My definition of faith is belief in something without sufficient evidence to justify it or in the face of evidence to the contrary. And if somebody... And that faith plays no part in my life at all anymore. I used to be a Christian for years, but that type of faith doesn't exist in my life anymore. Those things that some people might try to refer to as faith in the weak sense that Jeff was talking about. Well, you have faith the sun will come up tomorrow. No, I don't. I have a reasonable expectation based on an amazingly stacked history of continuing occurrence.
Well, but you hope it does.
Sure, yeah. I'd very much like for it to come up. I don't. Okay. It's in that type of thing is in such a situation where it would take more faith in the strictest sense to believe that the sun's not going to come up tomorrow than it is. Once you've got good scientific evidence and a basis of predictions that have continually come true. I mean, every day for my entire life, the sun has come up. or more accurately, the Earth has rotated so that it appears that the sun comes up. When you're in that situation, it's certain. I think it's a disservice to what people might consider to be faith to call belief that the sun's going to come up faith.
Okay, fair enough. And you said you were a Christian. What life experience changed in your life to change you to be atheist or agnostic or both?
I was raised a Southern Baptist, and I was active in church during my youth and everything else. I spent a period of time in the Navy and away from church, and I decided later on that perhaps I might have been called to preach, as I had felt feelings along those lines when I was a kid. So I decided, according to 1 Peter 3:15, to always be ready to provide the answer for the faith that's within you, to actually begin studying. And over the course of about 2 or 3 years of study, both into the Bible in its original languages as much as possible, because I don't speak or read all of them or any of them fluently, so it was a long study, but also philosophical issues concerning the arguments for and against the existence of any God. And there's the bulk of the evidence over time just became such that I was initially at a position where I need to reject Christianity because it's obviously not true, but I can't necessarily reject all these other beliefs. So then you start, going down the line and taking a look at others, and you realize that what you're seeing is part of a bigger pattern, and that is this notion of men creating religion to provide them comforting answers to questions that they don't have real answers for. That's not the only reason for religion, and I don't want to necessarily shoehorn it down, but I didn't make a leap from Christianity to atheism because of any trauma. I wasn't mad at the church. I wasn't ever molested. I don't have bad feelings towards my parents or anybody else who believes. It was simply study and a complete lack of evidence.
Answer this question for me, if you will, and I'm not being facetious. In a near-death experience or an experience that is out of your control and you're confronted with meeting your end, why is it so many people without belief seek God?
Do you have some statistics on how many people see God who didn't already believe in him?
I've seen a lot of people on their deathbed start talking about God as they're getting ready to
They're
go.
freaking terrified, sir. I mean, terror is, we talked about this earlier. I don't know if you've been watching the show all evening, but, fear is a great motivator to force people to start adopting beliefs that normally they wouldn't. This is why Christians are continually asking us, what if you're wrong? That is a direct attempt to scare us with the threat of hell, which they also can't prove, into going ahead and signing up for the religion. When somebody's on their deathbed, it is really no surprise for them to out of sheer terror, to go ahead and adopt the belief. That does not mean they've got the slightest bit of evidence to support it. It's understandable, but sad.
I think there's actually a little bit more to this. First of all, if there was absolutely no explanation for the phenomena that you're talking about, that doesn't mean that we should leap to the conclusion that it's true. It needs actual evidence to support its truth. The way I would answer this is really to pose a couple of other questions back at you, and I realize it's not always fair, but they're more rhetorical. Why is it that when people on their deathbed do see visions, and not everybody does, but of those who are recorded, why do they always see visions that match what their own beliefs already are? Why do Catholics see Catholic imagery, Protestants see Protestant imagery, Hindus see Hindu imagery, etc.? It's along the same lines of why are alien abduction stories always so similar? Surely that must be evidence that they're really being abducted. Now, what it's evidence for is that we're all humans connected through news media and books and movies and common
genetics.
Experiences and conversations, and these things build up in the subconscious, and all of a sudden the idea globally of an alien, this meme within our heads of an alien, becomes a small gray thing with almond eyes and a bigger than normal head and a smaller than normal body, and it becomes commonplace. And it's the same thing for somebody who's raised a Protestant or raised a Catholic. They see imagery that's close to that. It's why the Pope's more likely to see the Virgin Mary in a cracker than Martin Luther was.
One last question, well, two-part. What if you ever considered that you could be wrong?
Dude,
Sure.
we just talked about this.
About 10, 15
Okay.
What do
minutes
you
ago.
let me ask you just before we answer this? Are you a believer?
Yes.
Okay. What do you say is going to happen to us if we're wrong?
Oh, I think that you'll be blessed because of your ignorance and lack of direction. That's what I
Oh,
think.
so I guess if we're wrong, we'll be blessed. Nothing to worry about.
Well,
Thank you.
No, I just asked what you thought.
I think that
You're turning around asking me what I think.
okay.
I'm sorry to labor you that way. I can see that.
Well, you know, if we're wrong, then there is a God.
Okay,
That
good.
doesn't tell us which one, right? Like I was saying to an
Correct.
earlier caller, what if it's Odin? If it's Odin, they're not going to let me into the big longhouse with all the warriors preparing for the Battle of
I
Ragnarok.
appreciate that.
Huh?
I appreciate that. You're a bit condescending when you do talk to some of us.
Dude, come on. This is
I'm not
why
kidding.
should I? Wait, hold it.
One other
You
thing.
asked me what if I'm wrong.
Okay.
What are you asking me if I'm wrong
I'm a
about?
little frustrated.
I'm not just
One
wrong
other
about
question.
your. Would you put this guy on hold?
He is on hold.
I'm not. Atheism is not anti-Christianity. Atheism is the lack of belief in gods. I don't believe in your God any more than I believe in Odin. So if you ask me, what if I'm wrong? There is, as far as I'm concerned, as much chance that if there is a God, that it's Odin, than that it's your God. Or it could be Isis, or it could be Zeus. I don't know. They all look fake to me. Now, that it is a common tactic. Once again, speaking of, we've gotten a wonderful cavalcade of standard Christian responses on this episode. It's a common tactic among believers when faced with serious objection and disagreement with their beliefs to turn around and say, oh, well, you're condescending, or oh, well, you're mad, or oh, well, you're closed-minded. Why don't you respond to the words coming out of my mouth instead of trying to win by denigrating my character? If your beliefs are right, make your freaking argument. Ready? Is he gone?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
That was good. Is that the
Go.
only way you
Make
can
your
have
argument.
that conversation is by putting me on hold? Please.
If you won't shut
All
up,
right,
that's what
thanks.
we'll do. Your turn. Make your argument. Why should we believe in your God? Go.
Why, I'm not on television buying time to convince anybody to believe in
We're
my
not
God.
buying time either. This
You're
is
on
public
time
access. It's free.
To convince
Practically.
people to not believe in what they believe in. That's all.
No, what we're here doing. First of all, we're not buying any time. It's public access. It's done free. It's a nonprofit organization.
I wish there was money in atheism. There's not.
Well, how does it work?
And while
Nonprofit.
and can I talk, or do I have to put you on hold again? Okay. While I am actively trying to convince people that some beliefs are wrong, I provide good reasons for those claims of mine. And in part, it's one of the most common is that there's no good reason to believe the claims of religions. That faith is not a good tool for discerning the difference between reality and non-reality. So while I can understand, having been a Christian, how comfortable it is to have some beliefs, when we're talking about actual evidence, we're talking about what is real and what's not real, faith is not the tool to use to determine that. Evidence is, not, logic, reason, independent confirmation of evidence is extremely important. Now, if somebody wants to believe something completely on faith, they're more than entitled to, and I support everybody's right to believe whatever stupid stuff they want to believe. The difference is that the problem is when they act upon those beliefs and try to impose those beliefs on others, especially through legislation, by legislating about people's rights to choose on abortion, for example. When you begin to legislate your religious opinions, now it's no longer okay that you just back them up with faith. You better back them up with evidence, with argument, with reason. Faith alone is useless.
I draw a harder line than Matt, personally. I certainly agree with Matt but I don't know if our caller is of the brand of Christians who are politically active and trying to take over our country right now. I don't know that. We haven't asked him, and I don't want to assume that. But if at any time any believer comes at me with this "what if you're wrong" thing, trying to freaking scare me into joining your club by dangling hell in front of me, then dude, that is the only reason to ask the question. That is the only reason to ask that question. What on earth or else are you getting at? I'll back off. Maybe there is another reason. Why do you care what I think will happen to me after I die if I'm wrong? Why do you care?
It's just a conversation. It's not about me caring.
Come on. We know. I was a Christian too. I know what it's all about.
Hang on.
Bringing up hell is a fear tactic to scare people into joining the club. That's the point.
Yeah, and going with what Jeff says, if you really are a Christian and you're going to sit there and pretend that this is just a conversation, that you have no goal in mind, then I think you should probably hang up and go pray, because I don't find that to be remotely honest. You had to have some point. You're not proselytizing at all? You're not trying to back up your claims or beliefs?
No, he's not. I gave him a chance to.
Sorry?
No, I just called in. Actually, it was quite funny to get in on one phone call. You must be having a lot of feedback there today.
I've got full lines right now. And guess what? Now we've got a line open. See how easy that works?
That's the best he could do, is to try to denigrate the show.
Oh, obviously, I got in quick, so you guys aren't very popular.
Wait a minute.
Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter whether we're popular.
I just want to have a moment of sympathy for believers. Folks out there, those of you that believe, that are frustrated by our show, I completely sympathize. I know what it must be like to, after hanging out only with other believers, or when you try to proselytize, only running into people who haven't thought very deeply about these things and haven't got very good or clear understanding of where you're coming from or what the implications of your arguments are, and aren't prepared to defend themselves, right? I can understand how frustrating it must be for you to call into a TV show and talk to a couple of guys who have spent years doing this and thinking very deeply about these issues. We know where you're coming from. We know what these arguments are about. We know what you're trying to do. It ain't gonna work. Yeah. Sad for you. But you might just want to suggest, and we are not here, the show is not here to convert you. You can turn off the show and go away. We don't care. Believe what you want. But if you call into the show, you are going to be talking to some people who are able to hold up our end of the argument, okay? If you really feel that you need to be able to argue with folks as prepared as us, and you can't, there's two possible reasons for that. Either somehow, magically, we're able to defeat your arguments when, by all rights, we shouldn't, or else we're right and you're wrong. Just think about it. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I do care what people end up believing, because people do act upon their beliefs, and I would prefer that we lived in a world where the F word was faith, where you didn't abbreviate one word and laud another one.
Yeah, you're right. And to be honest, I care too. What I mean by when I said I don't care is I recognize your right to believe whatever you want. I would never in a zillion years condone prejudice against you or violations of your rights on the basis of what you believe. I think that is absolutely your right and inviolate, and I got nothing against that.
It's along the same lines of being asked,
But yeah,
would you
sad.
eliminate religion tomorrow if you could? No, I wouldn't. And the only reason I wouldn't is because I recognize there's some people who just aren't capable of living their life without it.
Elton John was in the news recently.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I did
Elton
see
John called for, well, no, he didn't call for, he said that if it was up to him, he would ban religion.
Yeah.
I would not ban religion, and I think Elton John's way out of line, and I think he probably counts as one of those people who hasn't thought terribly deeply about these issues.
Yeah, I'd prefer we move society.
That's not the answer.
I'd prefer we move society towards a point where religion just fades away, where, you know, it's some pocket kook thing, like, you know, it becomes old wives' tales, and yes, grandma really believes it, you know, in her basement, but it's no longer affecting public policy. As a reminder, since we haven't mentioned it yet, we're going to Threadgills after the program. Any atheist or atheist-friendly people are welcome to come down and join us. And when I say atheist-friendly, I've had plenty of liberal Christians and deists and others come down to have reasonable discussions, and that's fine. And we actually, you know, can enjoy it. When I say atheist-friendly, I don't mean you come down and smile and tell me how much Jesus loves me. That's not atheist-friendly. Sorry.
Right.
We got Joe Zamecki. How you doing?
Yes, Darwin bless your previous callers.
Thank you for staying on the line so long, Joe. You're
a trooper.
You have the patience of a saint.
Oh, I thank you very much. Jeff and Matt, y'all are doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Putting a great face on atheism, and I had to comment on a couple of things that have been said so far by our theistic calling friends, and one of them was this idea that the Pascal's wager, that we need to seriously consider what will happen to us according to their religion if we don't join their team.
Right.
And it is terrorism to an extent because they're trying to scare people into doing something, and the threat does involve violence, and I think that most Christians are wonderful people because they usually do not want to get into detail, graphic detail, about what they mean by that punishment. And just like we heard just now, it's difficult to get that out of them. Exactly what do you mean? What's going to happen bad to us? Give us the full details as you believe it will happen in your belief system.
Yeah,
and they usually say something benign like you'll be separated from God.
Yeah, I you know, as the point that Jeff was making, which I kind of thought about for a second, it's as if the question is really rhetorical. It's not like they expect any atheist to say, well, I think I'm going to go burn in hell. I mean, they know that's not the answer they're going to get, so why pretend? Why is it that we should sit up here and be honest and answer all these questions?
I have a suspicion.
And everybody else does this little tap dance around
I have
what
a
they're
suspicion why. I think that confronted with it, they realize that all they're doing is threatening us, and they realize that that looks bad, and they don't want to be caught doing exactly that.
Yeah.
That's why. That's why they won't say.
Well, here's one question I've had for Christians who believe in Pascal's wager really strongly, and that is, God seems to hate unbelievers worse than people who have a different religion, apart from the first commandment anyway, but if he's going to reserve a special spot in hell for atheists, the question to the Christians, I would say, is why do you think God is so angry at us atheists specifically? And of course, I think the answer in reality is, if people stop believing in this God and the supernatural claims that the church has come up with and foist on their followers, then they will stop giving money to that church.
And that would be the end of religion's power.
Right,
yeah,
but otherwise, that's the most explaining that can be done regarding that, because otherwise they don't have a hell to go and investigate and find out as a point of reference exactly what it's like and come back and describe it to us. They have nothing like that.
In fairness, Christians don't have a notion of a special hell for atheists. It's just hell and everybody goes there. And interestingly, there are Christians who don't accept the idea of a hell in the first place.
Even Catholics don't have a special hell for atheists? They have special hells for freaking everything.
See, that's
that's
I did a long show for this.
Okay.
Dante's Inferno comes from the Apocalypse of Peter, not the Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter. I did a show about the first one. There's two different books with the same name, but you know, there was in that book special things that happen in hell, where the homosexuals are thrown off of a cliff and pile up in this big stack, and then they climb off the stack and they have to go back up to the top of the cliff where they're thrown off the cliff again. So special punishments.
Well, I really like what Rowan Atkins said once on a stand-up show. He said he was pretending to be Satan in hell, and he had all these hell-bound people there in different groups, and he had to split them up into different kinds of groups, right? And so he said, Christians? Yes, Christians this way, please. What's that? No, I'm sorry, the Jews were right.
Yeah.
Step this way, please. So Anyway, I'll continue to watch, and it's been great. Thanks for the show.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, y'all have a great day.
You too.
Too. We've got Steve. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi, Steve.
Just on this topic of the possible reasonable reason why somebody might ask that question, and I in terms of if it's interpreted as an argument, I think everything you say is correct. It's a terrible argument. Pascal's wager, I don't think holds up as an argument for very long at all. I think what happens though is I think it's a thing that people's thoughts go through who aren't used to thinking about these kinds of things.
If I could cut in for just a second,
Yeah, sure.
just to be fair to our callers, I don't think we've been presented with specifically Pascal's wager. We've been confronted with something much more primitive, which is simply fear of the bad afterlife, right?
Yeah.
It's not formulated as a logical, well, you know, you should believe because you'll get good things if you're right and bad things if you're wrong. It's not carefully formulated like that. I know that's ultimately where it's going.
I don't think Steve's talking about that at all.
Okay, go on. I just want to make that
Even the
point.
question that they were asking, the way I think he asked something like, what if you find out you're wrong?
Yeah.
And you could interpret it exactly the way you interpreted it, and so I'm not really completely disagreeing with you. But one other reason a person might ask a question like that is, to them, if they're kind of thinking, gee, if I were to be an atheist,
What does
I
that
would
mean for
actually
me?
have to accept the possibility of rejecting my faith and then being wrong. And they're seeing that as a fearful thing. And they want to hear you say how you have gotten around that. And I think that is a legitimate question for somebody like that to ask.
It's something I agree with you. It's something I considered when we were talking about it earlier. I don't think that was the case earlier. I think that he was being a little coy.
Well, let's go ahead and answer it from that perspective then. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it depends on exactly how it's phrased, but I would tend to agree with Ingersoll in that, because when Ingersoll was asked, what do you do if you die and you find out you were wrong and you're standing there face to face with this God that you didn't think existed? And Ingersoll said, well, I'd stand there as a man and say I was wrong.
Right.
And then, of course, that God has a whole ton of explaining to do. As to why there wasn't sufficient evidence, why these contradictions existed, why there were 50,000 different concepts of God running around, and he didn't bother to step in and clear it up.
And after all that, given all those circumstances, how come the God thinks it's at all appropriate for him to therefore send you off to be tortured?
Yeah, in every situation.
The reason why I kind of like to hear that answer in addition to the other one is that that answer has, first of all, doesn't involve any, it's basically fearless.
Right.
It's a fearless answer, and it's a calm and reasonable answer also. And not to, you have really good reason to get riled up. So
it just pisses me off when people try to threaten me. I think they deserve to get they deserve to
Well,
get
if you
the
don't
brunt
stop
of my
getting
wrath.
pissed off, I'm going to throw something at you. Oh wait,
Right,
that's a threat
right.
too. Oh no!
I guess, but the Ingersoll style of answer, I think, actually throws water onto the hot coals a lot faster than the, I guess, direct fight back to me.
It depends what you're after. I mean, me personally, when somebody comes at me with a totally unfair and despicable attack like that, what my objective is to make them feel ashamed of themselves.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. That's what I think they're asking for.
I
But I have a third response to this whole thing.
Okay.
Right? Which I'll just take a moment to outline. There is not the slightest shred of physical scientific evidence that there is any such thing as a soul or that consciousness can exist in anything other than a working physical processor of some kind like the brains that we have. Not any. So because the other thing is, what if you're right? What if atheists are right? Then what do we get? Well, we get to rot in the ground. How fun is that? It's totally not fun. I'm against that. But the proper response, if you don't like the idea of dying, the proper thing to do in light of the actual evidence, which is that there are no souls, there is no heaven to go to, not to mention no hell, right? There is no existence after death. The proper thing to do, the rational, sensible thing to do, is support scientific research into human life extension.
Yeah, I mean, that's to the degree it's practical, that's a practical thing.
Well, we don't know how practical it is.
Yeah.
We don't know what the limits are. And
Right.
frankly, all that religion is contributing to the equation is a drag on scientific progress, preventing us from finding out how feasible it might be to extend actual human lifespan. How long could we lead healthy, productive lives with the assistance of, scientific technology, scientifically discovered technologies, right? We don't know. We don't know. It does look like without some kind of gene therapy, there is a maximum lifespan for humans somewhere up around 220 years. I'm sorry, 120 years, excuse me. And the best that we can do without genetic therapy is optimize the amount of that time that we're healthy and active, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
with genetic therapy, it is theoretically possible, right? And there are scientists working on this right now to find out the actual genetic mechanisms that kick in, that cause the decay of the body and eventual death, and to directly address those. Looking even further into the future, I can copy the contents of my computer onto another computer. If consciousness is a physical process in a physical brain, there's no reason we're stuck in biological bodies with their inherent limitations. I'm talking way far down in the future now, right? But that kind of pie-in-the-sky scientific possibility is what you can look at, what you can look forward to if you get rid of the stupid religion that's standing in the way of a clear understanding of what the facts are about life and death in the first place.
I think you're right. I guess my point, I'll hang up, is mainly just what's the best approach to get kind of helping people get over the emotional ties they have to their faith, and what kind of response encourages them to get across that, as opposed to kind of put up their dukes and fight against it. So it's just a matter of politics or tactics more than anything else. I don't disagree with you at all. And thanks for letting me call.
Sure.
Bye.
Thanks for calling.
Well, I offered my positive thing.
I don't know that there's any easy way. One thing that I've told a number of people is that the best thing you can possibly do is realize that you haven't actually lost anything. What you've lost is illusory. This idea of an eternal life, once you've discovered that it was an illusion, there's no reason to mourn it. There's no reason to feel bad that you've lost something which never existed in the first place.
Well, I think, but I think that's part of what drives people into the religions in the first place, is the bad feelings they have about the facts as they are.
I don't think that
being driven back out of the religion,
I don't think people are driven into religion.
People don't want to die, right?
I don't think people are driven into religion, first of all. I think most of them are born into it. And I'm not talking about people being driven out of religion.
What I mean to say is, I'm just talking about the development of religions in the first place.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
It's a fact that we die, and that sucks. And it's not pleasant. Nobody likes it, right? That's one of the big payoffs of religion, is the ability to completely ignore this quite depressing fact.
Yes.
Right. So you leave the religion, you're stuck facing this depressing fact.
Sure.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Okay.
And my point is, don't mourn the loss of the illusion of that fact not existing. Take a look at that fact and embrace the life that you have, and realize that every day is now infinitely more precious than it was before.
And all I'm saying is that it may not be that they're mourning that loss. It may mean that they're bemoaning the realization of the way things really are.
Okay.
Right?
Sure. Apples, oranges.
Well, it depends on how you look at it.
There's two other things about the whole Pascal's wager, or the what if you're wrong. One of them is this hidden implication that we haven't actually thought about it. You've got people like Kirk Cameron, who claim to have been devout atheists, and his big epiphany was, what if I'm wrong? And legit, there are real evangelists out there who seriously somehow, and I don't know how this is. I don't know how this is true for Kirk. I think he's lying. I hate to say it because you don't want to accuse people of being intentionally dishonest. I think he's lying because how could anybody not have sat around one day and said, "What if I'm wrong? Am I alone? Is the rest of humanity so impossibly arrogant that they don't ever consider that they might have possibly made a mistake about something?"
A lot of them are.
I get asked that question all the time. What if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? Do you really think that I've never thought about this? Do you think I could possibly have been, ignore the fact that I was a Christian for so many years and came to my atheism by direct study of the evidence surrounding the question. Let's toss all that out. Is it even feasible that I could be doing a show like this and not have been asked by somebody else what happens if I'm wrong, let alone myself? I don't know why it comes up all the time.
You know what maybe we should start saying when people ask us? This is like a fourth kind of response to that. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm right? If I'm right, I get to die and my body rots in the ground and I'm gone forever. The point of saying this is there's no big payoff to being an atheist. It's not about some kind of big emotional payoff. It's not about a reward. It's about caring what is actually going to happen and dealing with it.
Yeah. We'll move on. Is it David?
Yeah, hey guys.
How you doing?
Hey, good, thank you. Good show today.
Thanks.
Listen, I just want to formulate this question clearly because I can't quite figure out exactly what I'm asking myself, but I just want to get your opinion because I like the way you guys' minds work. Where do you think the original Christianity came from? And let me give you two options, and you tell me what you think of these. Is it just just an incredibly cynical manipulation by a group of people trying to run everything, or is it just an innocent belief that kind of spun out of control? Here's what I'm thinking about specifically. I'm reading a book the other day, and it mentions that somewhere in the bottom of the Vatican is the corpse of St. Peter or some damn thing, So I'm wondering, what's actually in that box? Or is the Catholic Church just completely lying? Is it possible that they're that cynical that they're just lying? See what I mean?
I vote for 2.
Yeah, I would go with option 2.
Really?
And I don't think the corpse of St. Peter is really relevant to which answer is correct.
I think if you look at I think if you look at pretty much any other realm of human endeavor, you can see that it's not at all uncommon for people to take advantage when the opportunity presents itself. And I think mostly what religion was at the beginning is, and we shouldn't be picking on Christianity here, right? We're talking about religion in general.
In general. But
every religion has its little shops where you can buy the trinkets, right?
I feel
total waste of
by
money.
Christianity, so I guess I am attacking them specifically. But
well,
yeah.
but no, let's not. I think mostly what it was at the beginning was an opportunity for new lines of product that were total crap that could be sold to credulous believers.
Usually, for me, in any given situation, given the choice between some sort of conspiracy or the natural kind of greedy misuse, manipulation, let's grab as much power as we can type of thing that wasn't orchestrated, the unorchestrated solution is probably preferred. I mean, it seems to me to make more sense that you've got all these religions around the world, and one more creeps up, and sure, there are people who legitimately believe it and believe that they're doing the right thing, and also you've got people who say, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of those believers for my own gain. And you've got some people who are probably somewhere in between, who I believe this, and I know you believe this, and I'm going to use that to my benefit, despite the fact that I believe it as well. I mean, I don't think televangelists are all fakes. I think there's probably a few that are fakes.
Probably the more successful ones are fakes.
And I think that
they're more theatrical.
Well, I don't consider Pat Robertson to be remotely a fake. I believe he genuinely believes the crap that spews forth from his mouth, and I think the same is true for Falwell. And so with them in a position of power and authority and genuinely believing it, I think the more reasonable point is to show that what they're doing and saying is wrong, whether they're, some kind of conspiratorial asshats or just, going along with what they genuinely believe.
Well, let me go back. I know it seems kind of irrelevant, but this is the thing that keeps catching me. Let me go back to the St. Peter lying in the dirt down there.
Mm-hmm.
If there
right next to Mary Magdalene. Oh, that's the Louvre. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. She's in the Louvre, I guess, or in Scotland. I forget where she ended up. But there was a guy last night. He was on the radio talking about she's in Arkansas. Or no, wait, no, it was the Ark of the Covenant's in Arkansas. Anyway, I know it gets endlessly ridiculous. But let's go back to St. Peter for just a second. So basically, either there is a corpse, a skeleton in a box that they say is St. Peter, or the room is empty. You see what I mean? So either way...
Or the room might not even exist.
That's true.
Or there's a corpse.
There apparently is a locked door.
Or there's a corpse and it's not him.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. It's just... But see, I have to... For some reason, I have to see whether or not they're cynically knowing that it's not him, or they innocently believe that it is him.
And I'm not sure why it's relevant whether it's him or not, or whether
I think it can be, and here is an example of why. There was a case in Salt Lake City, this is several years ago now, where some guys were forging documents concerning the early years of the Mormon Church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that would be, and it was designed to be by these forgers, designed to be extremely embarrassing.
I remember this.
To the Mormon Church, right?
Right.
And what they were doing is forging this stuff and then offering it to the upper ups in the Mormon Church, right? So that those guys in the church could buy it and suppress it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is hugely important to understand about religious leaders, right? And I don't know that that's necessarily conspiracy in the same sense of we're consciously aware that we're ripping people off and we want to do everything in our power to rip them off more, right? Or whether it's, this is our livelihoods. Everything that we do is wrapped up in this. If it comes out, we believed it at first, but if it comes out that, this or that embarrassing thing about the church comes out, our church could be ruined, it could fall down, we could be laughingstocks, right? Ruin the rest of our lives.
Right.
And the reason that I say that it's completely irrelevant, which I'm sure is going to make a whole bunch of Christians sigh, is that the body of St. Peter is completely irrelevant to Christianity. He's not Jesus. He has no bearing on the theology. Where he's buried is completely irrelevant.
And I was just talking about the concept, the behavior of
they may have the
religious
bones,
leaders. We've got some documentation on how religious leaders can behave, and it makes sense. It makes sense even if you don't look at it as necessarily evil conspiracy, but just some poor guys who are now in charge of this big business, and they find out, boy, we got a really difficult ethical dilemma here. Either we let it all get destroyed by these secret documents that happen to not be true, or we can buy them up and hide them.
I appreciate that. And here, let me. I know there are other callers. I'll get off here quickly. Okay. But Matt, this is why I think it's relevant. Just because of something you said earlier, it seems to me, and I will admit, unlike you guys, you have to be a little more politically correct. People are watching you, but I'm by myself here. I can just say whatever I want. So I'm straight up attacking Christianity. I have no problem attacking them. I think they're very dangerous. So I'm trying to find a way in to find a chink in the wall.
Well, I don't have any problem with that either. I don't think I have to be politically correct.
Or
I abhor Christianity. I abhor all religions that are faith-based that I think are dangerous. And
David,
I have no problem saying that.
But David, if you were in a position to make it a crime to be a Christian, would you do it?
No, never.
That's all I was saying.
No, never.
I would love to see all religions go away because I think they're incredibly damaging, and I wish everybody would stop. But I'm not going to outlaw it.
Yeah, there's a difference between letting something go away on its own and taking it away.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to earlier, Matt. You said you would like to see religion just become more and more marginalized and eventually just kind of become this sort of idiosyncratic eccentricity and just fade. Yeah. Well, I think that's happening, and I think that if we can somehow or other prove, I don't know if prove is the correct word, but show that these, that there's nothing in that room, more likely that it will become marginalized more quickly.
I think that could have an effect if you were able to prove that the room was empty, but I think it's a very small effect because the immediate answer is, well, we moved it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And the other answer is, well, it doesn't really matter because it's Peter and not Jesus. I think it's better. The historicity of Jesus comes up a lot. We have discussions, and there are friends of mine in the atheist community who think that Jesus never actually existed physically. And there are some who think that somebody named Jesus existed physically who was kind of source material for the stories of the Bible, but that all the stories are wrong. And there are some who think that varying degrees of this, of meshing of reality. I don't have a good solution to the question of the historicity of Jesus. The only thing that I can say with a strong degree of certainty is that it is unproven that he actually did exist, and the idea that the Bible accurately reflects what he did and said is completely unproved. So I don't have to take a position on the historicity of Jesus. All I can say is that you still haven't made your case.
Right.
You can claim that there was this guy and that he said this, and yet we know that those books weren't written. Even if I was to be nice to Christians, Paul's writings, and Paul never met Jesus, even according to the Bible. They're 30 to 60 years after Jesus supposedly died. Now, he doesn't ever quote Jesus. So the first people who actually bothered to quote Jesus, those things were written 60 to 70 to 200 years or more after Jesus is supposedly dead. Now, come on now. I don't remember what my high school teacher said. I don't remember there were some, I can't even always quote, some of my Ingersoll correctly. I can't quote him verbatim, and I revere his words to a great extent. So this idea that the Bible is actually, word for word what Jesus said and did, if he did in fact exist, which is still an open question, that's absurd.
See, that's where, again, it catches me again, because I wonder, are these people sitting down and consciously thinking, I'm making this up as I write this? Or is it just, do they think they know? You see what I mean? To me, I wonder how cynical it becomes at its root. Basically.
It depends very much on who the authors were, and since we don't know who any of the authors were, I mean, we have a pretty good idea of how much Paul wrote and which ones he wrote, although some theologians will say that some of the writings attributed to Paul are actually a conglomeration of several different writings. But the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they weren't written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John.
Right.
So
that's explored nicely in the 5 Gospels, I'm sure you've read.
Yeah. I hate to drag this out, but I want to throw in yet another thing to consider, right? When Ted Haggard admitted to employing the services of a male prostitute and taking drugs, the male prostitution part, people in his congregation responded by saying, well, we're not against gay people per se, we're only against gay marriage. And since Ted Haggard didn't ask that prostitute to marry him, he hasn't done anything that we're against, so he's not a hypocrite. With that kind of reasoning, right? The willingness to bend over that far backwards to justify, if it was proved tomorrow that the writers of the Bible knew that they believed that they were making stuff up and that they were doing it entirely just to make money, there would be believers today who would say, isn't that an amazing sign of God's miraculous power? Even through these criminals and shysters, he managed to give us this truth.
Right, absolutely.
So,
you would hear that. It's true.
Yeah.
Like that thing about the earlier versions of Jesus living, was Satan testing us by placing them in advance of the existence of Jesus? Or
I've heard that. Anytime anybody points out a similarity between the Jesus story and one of the other Christ figures or messianic figures that came before it, Satan knew Jesus was coming, so he went and made these other guys kind of like Jesus, so that we'd have this good argument about how Jesus is copying them.
It must hurt to bend your brain that far backwards.
I think it does. I don't remember bending mine quite that far, but I definitely bent mine some.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, David.
Bye-bye.
I had a point about something that I can't remember exactly what the hell it was.
I'm sorry.
No, not your fault. David had good points. As a reminder, everybody involved in the show has been going to dinner at Threadgill's after the show on Riverside. We're off the air here in about 5 minutes, so we'll try and get another call in, maybe 2 if we have time. Any atheist or atheist-friendly people, welcome to join us down there at Threadgill's. Feel free to come down, have some dinner, talk, get to meet some of the folks in the ACA. Let us know what you think about the show, things we ought to be doing, or any feedback and any participation with the group that you might want to be looking forward to. So we've got, is it Joe?
Yes.
How you doing, Joe?
Hi. I wanted to tell you something about that. You said something about near-death experiences. Well, I had an outer-body experience, what I thought was an outer-body experience, but it was later scientifically explained. On the History Channel, they talked about the Foo Fighters and the pilots that saw balls of fire off their wings during World War II. They thought they were UFOs.
Right.
Well, what the History Channel scientists explained was it was the sound waves that affected the brains of these pilots and caused them to hallucinate. And while I was in a meditation experiment in California at Esalen Institute, they had this cable set up in a room like a giant electric bass guitar, but they were like 15 feet long cables, and they shook the whole cottage. The whole house was shaken with vibrations, and I felt myself like 50 feet above my head looking down. So it was hallucination brought on by sound waves.
Very interesting.
Interesting.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, and then until I saw the History Channel, I was thinking I had an outer body experience, what they were trying to, some of the things they were talking about. But it can be brought on through science.
Yeah, our brains work properly so often that most people are just not prepared to deal with the idea that they're able to go wrong, under certain circumstances. And that, but, neurological, strange neurological activities like that are seem to be the explanation for pretty much all of the supernatural stuff.
So as time goes on, I think science will explain more and more of these things that are happening that people see.
Certainly seems to be the pattern so far.
Like the old Christian saints used to, starve themselves so they'd see things. After a couple of days of not eating and drinking, I guess you'd start seeing things.
Yeah. Well, and this is why at least certain extremists in religions attack science, because it provides explanations to things they don't want explained. They want their believers to continue believing that it's signs of the supernatural.
Yeah, and I guess, somebody could make an argument that, given the evidence, God evidently wants to show himself and appear to people who've starved themselves and taken shrooms. I mean, you could make that case and sound entirely reasonable. And there are people whose religions incorporate the use of hallucinogenic drugs. There have even been court cases about them recently, about whether or not they should be allowed to use them despite federal regulations against them. And they're going to take drugs and have a hallucinatory experience and believe that it's real.
The Chinese monks drank tea and stayed awake for a week, and they saw things.
Wow,
staring at a candle for a week.
Okay. Thanks very much. That's cool.
Thanks a lot for calling, Joe.
Yeah, that's all right.
Think we can get these two guys in the next couple of minutes?
Well, one of them hung up already, so we're just down to James. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I had a quick question. How long has your organization been around, as far as your Atheist Community of Austin? How long has that been around?
It's 10. Is it 10 years?
It's about let's just say it's about 10 years. It's
about 10.
It's certainly
about
close.
10 years. I have some really quick questions. I truly believe most of the stuff you read anyway, regarding religion or metaphorical, someone saw something.
You need to sum up. We got like 30 seconds left.
Yeah, hurry up, sir. 30 seconds.
My question is, I think that in order for us to get to where we got to at this point in time here in the United States, I believe religion was used to control the masses of people. And I think if we didn't have it at this point, we wouldn't have been where we are today. So saying that note, if we didn't have that, I don't even think this show or where we're at would even be here, because
I got to let you go on that note. Yeah, there's a lot to discuss. We can talk about it next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Reminder to come down to Threadgill's afterwards. If you want to, you can come down and we can have a discussion about that specifically. So
I'd be happy not to have this show if there wasn't religion controlling people.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your Thanksgiving.